Welcome to today's video. Today we're going over the aircrafts that we would want to see added, obviously premiums. Again, I'm joined by JamedPrawn3, and he will appear when I start off with the German B-24. But first, we're going to start off with the Lizunov Li-2. Now, if you look at this plane, it looks very familiar, doesn't it? It looks like a DC-3. You'd be sort of correct. However, it was a Russian modification strapped with guns to it. It had Shikast machine guns put across it, and also a single 50 caliber Berezin UB machine gun on it. It also could carry 1 ton of bombs, and overall it's just a unique aircraft because who would not want to fly a DC-3 in War Thunder? Well, a copy of a DC-3. Now, when we was actually considering this, me and JamedPrawn didn't want to do too many captured premiums, so, and obviously Lend-Lease. This isn't technically a Lend-Lease because it was modified by the Russians, but there are only 2 captured aircraft on this list, which we're happy about. Obviously, we've done one for each nation. But the Li-2 is a good 1.3 to 1.7 bomber, and I think it would perform pretty well. Okay, JamedPrawn, we are now going to move on to the B-24. Take over, please.
The B-24 28641 was a captured B-24 by the Germans. The Germans nicknamed it the CG. It was the variant was a B-24H. It was first assigned to the 722nd Bomber Squadron by the United States Air Force. After it failed to return during a practice mission, it was lost shortly after takeoff and failing to form up with a section. Landing in Czechoslovakia with a badly wounded crew, including Sergeant Nissan and Sergeant. The Germans captured it as it impressed the Luftwaffe and was flown by KG-200 as a transport coded under the title of Ace-3 plus KG until it was abandoned by the retreating Luftwaffe in May of 1945 at Salzburg. Of information on this plane, I'm going to have to hand you back to Joseph.
Well, obviously the B-24 was one of the most common bombers developed by the American Air Force, and we thought, well, there's the Japanese B-17 in game. We didn't want to include another B-17 captured by the Germans. We thought we'd go something a bit more different and try a B-24, and luckily we encountered this with the tail number that JamedPrawn listed. So thankfully there was a German B-24. Otherwise, we would have probably considered a German B-25.
Would be a very good vehicle to be added to War Thunder, and could be a very good balancing as Germany itself does not have very many heavy bombers in game.
Indeed, they don't. And obviously, the B-24 currently sits at about a rate of 6.0, which, I mean, it's a bit over the top in my opinion, but it would give Germany some high-tier bombers, at least, that can compete.
Yeah. Their highest bomber is 5.3, and that's the HE-177.
And the only one after that is the Arado 234.
Which is 6.7, so a high tier but not jet bomber for Germany would be excellent.
Okay, so that covers the B-24. We're now going to move on to Japan. Now, personally, I'd want to see this plane in the tech tree, but I think it would be more appropriate as a premium because not many of it was built. This is the Ki-20 built by Mitsubishi, the same people who built the Mitsubishi Evo, one of my favorite sports cars. But we're not going to go to cars today, don't worry. But this is a 1932 bomber, I believe, and it was armed with a single 20mm in the dorsal turret position and several 7.7mm machine guns mounted across the aircraft. You can see here on the picture, just where my cursor is, you can actually see there is a mounting point for turrets underneath the wings, similar to a TB3. This aircraft could also carry up to 5 tons of bombs, which is very impressive. However, the engines are, well, I believe it's a 4-engine aircraft. The tail looks very easy to shoot off, and not only that, Japanese 7.7s aren't really that good anyway. The selling point of this aircraft is that 20mm and the 5 tons of bombs. But as a balancing factor, this aircraft is also very slow. With a top speed of only about 125 miles per hour, it's not going to get anywhere fast. But that's a good balancing factor. This could be a good 1.3 to 1.7 bomber in my opinion. Okay, now we're going to move on to something which probably people are going to moan about. The Bf-109 F4 captured by the British. Take it away, JamedPrawn.
Thank you very much. During the the long battle of the Battle of Britain, several 109s were captured and put into the RAF's hands. They were passed through air fighting development where they were tested and all sorts before they were passed to the RAF Squadron Number 1426 Enemy Flight, nicknamed the RAF WAF or RAF WAF. There's not too much to say in this subject, but they captured 6 in total. E to an F4 to a G14 to even a G4 to multiple other ones.
I believe they also captured Focke-Wulf 190s.
That was another option.
Is that another squadron?
For this video.
I thought it was. But
I don't.
Obviously,
we
didn't want to include the Focke-Wulf 190 because it's in Japanese service at the moment in War Thunder. It's in American service. It as a premium, obviously, but we didn't think adding another Focke-Wulf to the tree. And obviously, there is also the NC 900, the French Focke-Wulf 190 A8. So we thought a BF 109 is a good option, and things like that.
It's a very iconic plane, and we thought since Britain doesn't have a single captured aircraft at all in its trees or anything else, we thought it'd be a very good addition to War Thunder.
Not only that, most of the premiums in the British tree are actually Lend-Lease, so that's the problem. But we thought this would be a good compromise.
It'd be an excellent compromise because the 109 was a very famous and very capable aircraft during the Second World War, and it'd be very fun in the British tree, in my opinion.
Indeed. And also, if you get a match like Hokkaido with American and British 109s dueling against each other, that would be pretty interesting to see. But that's my opinion. Battle of the Beasts, indeed. Next up is the SM92. Now, at first I thought this was a twin cockpit design. It is not. It is only a single one. Now, in real life, this thing carried, I believe, 3 20mm cannons and 5 machine guns, 12.7 Braiders. And in real life, this thing was actually mistaken to be a P-38, and it was actually shot at by a C-205. It could also carry 2 tons of bombs, and before this aircraft could take real action against the Allies, it was grounded due to the C-205's damage. Then it was destroyed in a bombing raid in 1944. Real shame, but this thing would be amazing. It's powered by the same engines as the C-205, which we all know are very good engines. They're very good inlines, and they will be perfect for propelling this thing along up into the skies, ready to boom and zoom a target. And with the bomb load, it will be handy in tank RB as well. Anyway, next up is the POTUS 540 for the French. Take it away, JamedPrawn.
Now, this aircraft, as a lot of French aircrafts during 1930s and 1940s, is well known for being absolutely horrible. It was designed in 1932 and started production in 1934 with 192 models built. Combat was seen during the Spanish Civil War, where the Spanish gave it the nickname of the Flying Coffin for how poor and terrible it did. As 2 years after it was introduced, it was completely obsolete by the more modern Italian and better performing German aircrafts of the same period. There's not a lot said because by the beginning of World War II, it was obviously in 1934. So when in 1939 during the Second World War, they couldn't do much for it. So they for transport and parachute services. And after the invasion of France, they put most of them south towards Africa, where they spent most of their service life then.
Apologies about that barking. That is actually JamedPrawn's dog. But anyway, the POTUS 540 we thought would work as either a gift vehicle or something like that, or a gift/premium. If it was a premium, it'd be a cheap premium because obviously the nickname.
Very cheap.
Yeah.
And it'd sit at either 1.3, 1.0, or 1.7 for how bad it was.
I'd probably say 1.3 would be its limit due to how slow it is, weakly defensive armed it is.
The B-10
yes.
in American tree.
But finally, we're moving on to something that you may have seen already in War Thunder as a mod pack. This is the Vought XF5U, nicknamed the Flying Flapjack. Now, personally, I don't know all that much about this vehicle, but all I do know is that it was a twin-engined Navy aircraft design intended to take off really quickly from carriers, intercept aircraft with high speed and decent maneuverability. However, this aircraft really wasn't all that great, as we already had Corsairs, and soon enough Bearcats were being developed, and there wasn't much point of putting this kind of aircraft design into service when you've got Bearcats and Corsairs flown about. And even then, the
So
Hellcat was perfectly good enough.
this aircraft would have been essentially a big flat target. Say if we went vertical, any plane that would have had a shot had a shot at its underside would have just absolutely torn it apart. Due to its large wing space, it would have been really slow with a lot of drag and not robo.
It could maneuver well at low speeds, but other than that, there's not a lot going for it. At high speeds, it would most likely compress due to the propellers spinning right in front of the rudder, and it would just mess up the control surfaces. The ailerons, we're not even sure where the ailerons are, if it even has any, but
If
even
I've been
so.
looking at it, and I think it is between the rudders
I thought it was between the rudders,
there.
but
Yeah.
that would also create very bad compression problems, and overall you'd have to sell this thing as a cheap premium.
I think it wouldn't be cheap. I think it'd be very much like the
The XP55,
XP55
yeah.
being a very expensive low tier premium.
The problem is that its armament, as far as I'm aware, was 4 20mm cannons, which we all know how good the American cannons actually are in War Thunder, so we're not sure how we'd balance this, but it's just something to take into account. So I hope that covers the aircraft that we'd want to see in War Thunder. Obviously, not all of them are captured. We don't want to see too many captured. That's the one thing that annoys me about War Thunder. They just copy and paste to get easy bucks.
Or Lent lease either.
Or then lease, yes, in the case of the Russians. But that's it for today, and I will catch you all on the next